and welcome to the Analyst dated 31st October 2023 by Vajiram and Ravi, wherein we'll be looking into important current affairs article from both The Hindu as well as Indian Express. And the handout of this very discussion is available in the description below. Let's have a look over the table of content, what all topics we are going to discuss in today's Analyst. So firstly, we'll be looking into India-Bangladesh relationship. We'll try to understand why Bangladesh is significant for India, what are the areas of cooperation, and what are the issues between the two states. Then we'll try to understand a social issue called regionalism. In this, we'll try to understand what are the factors responsible for regionalism, what are its manifestations, and what all measures are there to address this very issue of regionalism in India. Then we'll try to understand why Amazon rainforest is witnessing drought, what are the impacts on account of Amazon rainforest is witnessing drought, and what needs to be done in this regard. Then we'll try to understand what is bail. We'll try to understand what are the different types of bail. Then we'll be looking into prisoner's dilemma, which is an economic concept. So without wasting any time, let's begin our discussion. Let's look into our first topic, which is related to India-Bangladesh relation. And this topic is related to this very aspect of our GS paper 2 syllabus. What is the context? So the context is, recently, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, that is Narendra Modi, and his Bangladesh counterpart, that is Sheikh Hasina, will be jointly inaugurating tomorrow a key cross-border railway project, that is Agartala-Akhora cross-border railway link project. The MOU with regard to this project was signed a decade ago, and when it comes to this project, 5 km of this project would be lying in India and 10 km would be lying in Bangladesh. This project would go a long way in reducing the travel time between Kolkata and Agartala via Dhaka from 31 hours to 10 hours. And it is also probably going to increase the connectivity between the two nations. Now in this background, let's explore India-Bangladesh relations. When we look at the history, India played a very prominent role when it comes to Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. And India was the first country to recognize Bangladesh as a separate state right after its independence. Now in this background, we need to understand why Bangladesh is so significant for India. First is geopolitical significance. Now, when it comes to India and Bangladesh, they share land boundary, they share maritime boundary, and this is the reason Bangladesh becomes very crucial to India when it comes to countering China's influence in the Indian Ocean region, especially to counter China's string of pearls theory. What is this Chinese string of pearl theory? So China is deploying this strategy of developing commercial as well as military bases and ports in the different countries which are there in the Indian Ocean region. And it is developing these ports and bases in different countries which are there in the Indian Ocean region in order to enhance its presence as well as its dominance in the Indian Ocean region. And in this regard, India needs coordinated effort from Bangladesh end in order to counter Chinese presence as well as dominance in the Indian Ocean region. Coming to strategic significance. Now, Bangladesh is situated at the crossroads of South Asia as well as Southeast Asian nations. And this is the reason Bangladesh is very crucial for India when it comes to India's Act East policy. Through this policy, India is basically trying to strengthen its relationship with the Southeast Asian nations. And in this regard, Bangladesh is going to play a very crucial role. Coming to cultural ties, a lot of people of Indian origin are there in the Bangladesh population. This is the reason of strong cultural ties between the two nations. Then, when it comes to India and Bangladesh, they share around 54 trans-boundary rivers, example Ganga, Brahmaputra, Tista, etc. So the two nations need to cooperate with each other when it comes to effective water management, when it comes to flood management. And that is the reason they have created Joint River Commission in this regard as well. Now, the next thing that we need to explore is areas of cooperation between the two nations. When we talk about economic ties between the two nations, Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner when it comes to South Asia. And when it comes to India, it is Bangladesh's second largest trading partner. The bilateral trade between the two nations in 2021-22 was around this much billion. And when it comes to the exports of Bangladesh to India, it has tripled over the last decade and it has crossed this billion mark. In July 2023, both nations signed an agreement that they would be carrying out their trade transactions in rupees. This would go a long way in reducing their dependence when it comes to US dollars. And this is what we call it as one of the aspects of de-dollarization. Then, when it comes to the connectivity between the two nations, so the two nations are already running these two passenger trains, that is Maitri Express and Bandhan Express. And we have also come across with the cross-border link project, railway link project. And the two nations also have protocol on inland water transit and trade, which enables the two nations to use the waterways of each other nations, okay, for transportation of goods. Coming to cultural ties, so in this regard, Indira Gandhi Cultural Center, which is situated in Dhaka, plays a very prominent role in organizing cultural events and celebrating the common cultural links that are there between the two nations. Coming to defense cooperation, so the two nations carry out joint exercises when it comes to army. The name of the exercise is Sampriti, and when it comes to naval joint exercises, it is Corpat Bango Sagar. And the two nations on an annual basis organize defense dialogues as well. Then when it comes to countering China's influence, India is cooperating with Bangladesh in the domain of artificial intelligence, nuclear technology. It is enabling Bangladesh to adopt modern farming techniques as well. And India has also provided 3 lines of credit, which is amounting to around 8 billion US dollar since 2010. What is this line of credit? It is being provided by India to Bangladesh so that it could finance its infrastructure projects. So when it comes to line of credit, these are soft loans, okay, wherein the interest rate is very low. And these are very flexible also. Whatever amount of line of credit is provided to you, you would be charged the interest rate only on the withdrawn amount, okay. So let's suppose India has provided Bangladesh with a line of credit of this 8 billion, okay. Now Sri Lanka withdraws around 2 billion. So Sri Lanka would have to pay interest only on this 2 billion and not on this whole amount of 8 billion. So it has a element of flexibility when it comes to line of credit. This is enabling India to counter China's influence, especially in the Bangladesh. Then the two nations also cooperate on multilateral forums, that is SAARC, BIMSTEC, Indian Ocean Rim Association, etc. Now, let's look into the issues which are there between the two nations. First is the border issue, because when it comes to the border area in Assam and Tripura, the border has yet not been demarcated. Then we witness the issue of illegal migration from Bangladesh, especially the Rohingya refugee crisis. So Rohingya were entering into especially the northeastern states of India. And in this regard, when India planned to come up with National Register of Citizens, this raised concern in the Bangladesh nations. When it comes to river water sharing, as we discussed right now, the two nations share around 54 cross-border rivers, including Ganga, Brahmaputra, Tista, etc. But we have been able to sign river water sharing treaties with regard to Ganga and Kushiara river only. Still, when it comes to the two nations, Tista and Farakka barrage dispute is still pertaining because the consensus has yet not been developed on this issue. When it comes to insurgency, media reports have pointed out that United Liberation Front of Assam, National Democratic Front of Bodoland and National Liberation Front of Tripura all are having their camps in Bangladesh. And they are engaging in certain income generating activities in the Bangladesh, and those funds are basically used to finance the insurgency operations in India. Then there is increased Chinese influence when it comes to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is also a part of string of pearls theory of China, under the Belt and Road Initiative, China has developed Chittagong port in the Bangladesh. So this is a major concern for India. Why? Because in future, China might be using these commercial ports for military purposes. And this would in turn increase the dominance of the China in the Indian Ocean region, which is a threat to the security of India. Then time and again there have been instances of drug smuggling and human as well as trafficking of animals, because on account of porous borders between the India and Bangladesh, because there is very tough topography here. So fencing also becomes very, difficult in the between the Bangladesh and India. Now, the last thing that we need to make note of, what needs to be done in this background in order to strengthen India-Bangladesh relation. So the two nations should finalize comprehensive economic partnership agreement, negotiations for which are being carried out since 2018. This would go a long way in further integrating the economies of the two nations, because this would give boost to investments, trade in goods and services, flow of individuals as well, and it would bring investment in different domains. Then, when it comes to countering China's influence in the Bangladesh, India needs to provide requisite finance to Bangladesh so that it could address the infrastructure gaps which it is witnessing. And when it comes to implementation of connectivity projects also, India need to make sure that these connectivity or infrastructure projects for which the MOUs are being signed between the two nations, they needs to be implemented within the timeline. Okay, there should not be delay in implementation of such infrastructure projects with regard to which MOU are signed. And in order to counter China, India should cooperate with Bangladesh when it comes to critical technologies, emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, etc. When it comes to managing the illegal migration from Bangladesh to India, India should adopt smart border management techniques, wherein India should make use of artificial intelligence, data analytics and smart fencing in order to monitor the cross-border movements. Then, the enforcement agencies of the two nations could come up with a joint task force, wherein the enforcement agencies would be sharing the intelligence inputs and they would be carrying out coordinated efforts in order to bring down the instances of drug trafficking and human trafficking as well as trafficking of animals. And when it comes to the water sharing disputes with regard to Tista, with regard to Farakka barrage, the two nations need to develop a consensus in this regard in a timely manner through dialogue. And in this regard, they can also make use of the different platforms on which they coordinate. Okay, like SAARC is there, Indian Ocean Rim Association is there. That is all that we have to make note of from this very topic. Let's move to the next one. Now, this next topic is related to regionalism. And this topic pertains to this very aspect of our GS paper 1 syllabus. We also have a previous year question in this regard. So, after listening to this very discussion, please try and attempt this question. What is the context? So, sadly, a non-local worker was shot dead by the militants in the South Kashmir's Pulwama district. And this non-local worker was basically belonging to Uttar Pradesh. What we have witnessed in the Kashmir Valley is that the attacks on non-local laborers is on a rise since 2019 after the abrogation of Jammu and Kashmir special status. The attack is on a sharp increase in 2022 as well. Now, this time and again, the attack on non-local workers, laborers, this basically points out to a social issue that is known as regionalism. So, let's look into this very topic. So, the first thing that we need to understand is, what is regionalism? So, the people who are living in a particular region, they share common history, culture, food habits, language, etc. And on account of this common culture, history, lifestyle, food habits, they share a sense of togetherness. So, regionalism basically refers to this very idea. But this sense of togetherness is not a problem. What is problematic is when one region start advancing its own interest against the interest of whole nation or against the interest of another region. Now, we need to understand that what all factors have led to this issue of regionalism in India. First is geographical factors. Now, when you look at India, we have different topography. You have Himalayas in the northwest, okay. Then we have forest region in the eastern side. Then we have coastal areas in the southern region. On account of this, there is variation in climate. And on account of variation in climate, there is variation in clothing pattern. There is variation in festivals. There is variation in food habits. This has given rise to the issue of regionalism, because on account of distinct culture of a particular region, the people belonging to particular region feel a sense of togetherness. Then when we look at historical factors, what we found out is, during the ancient India, it was only during the Ashoka's rule that India was a united political entity. Otherwise, it was ruled by local rulers. We have different dynasties. For example, Chola dynasty, Satvahana dynasty, Pandya dynasty, etc. And when it comes to medieval India, India was again united, politically united under the rule of Akbar. But even during the rule of Akbar, what we witnessed is, governors used to govern the small provinces that were there, and that lead to development of local culture. For example, Rajput. Again, during the British period, again India was united politically, but on account of divide and rule policy of Britishers, we witnessed this issue of regionalism. They made the princes of different dynasty to fought war against themselves, example Carnatic War. Then they divided the Indian society based on caste lines, religion basis. For example, partition of Bengal in 1905 was basically to divide the Indian society between Hindus and Muslims, dividing the Indian society on regional lines. On account of this, what we witnessed is that there was development of local culture in different regions, and that is the reason that the people belonging to different region do not find themselves as a united lot. Okay, when it comes to all the regions which are there in India, they tend to identify themselves with their own separate region. When it comes to the linguistic factors, so around 22 official languages are there when it comes to the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. But when you look at 2001 census, there are around this many mother tongues. And what we witness is, on account of language basis also, India is a divided lot. And this ultimately manifested in linguistic reorganization of states in 1956. Then religion and caste also play a major role in this social issue called regionalism. India and Pakistan were divided based on what lines? Religious lines. And when it comes to Khalistan movement, which we witnessed in 1980s, in this movement, the Sikhs demanded that they need a separate state for the Sikh only. Then on the caste lines, what we witness is, Vaniyars of North Tamil Nadu are also demanding a separate state for them on account of their common caste identity. Then there are political factors as well, especially when it comes to the regional political parties. They give boost to the local cultures, okay, and they use this linguistic and this regional basis in order to secure vote banks. Coming to economic factor, which is one of the major factor when it comes to the issue of regionalism in India. Because on account of poor economic development, what we witnessed is, employment opportunities were not created enough. This led to time and again tussle between the local people and the migrant workers. Okay, time and again there is competition between the local people and the migrants workers when it comes to the employment opportunities, and this is what we call it as theory of son of soil. And if you look at the creation of different states, okay, or demand of creation of different states, it is merely on the basis of economic backwardness of a particular region, which led to creation of Telangana from Andhra Pradesh, which led to creation of Uttarakhand from UP. And when it comes to the Naxalism also, its roots are basically in economic deprivation. So these are majorly the factors which led to regionalism in India. Now the next thing that we need to understand is, in what all forms we witness the manifestation of regionalism. First is creation of new states. when it comes to State Reorganization Act 1956, it led to creation of 14 states and 6 union territories. But later on also, different states were created, especially on the basis of economic backwardness, like Telangana from Andhra Pradesh, then Uttarakhand from UP, etc. Then in 1960s, there was demand for Dravida Nadu, which basically demanded that let's create a separate sovereign nation for all the non-Hindi speaking southern states. This was especially in the background of imposition of Hindi language on the southern states. Then time and again we witnessed this sub-regional movements, that is creation of a separate state when it comes to Vidarbha in Maharashtra, Saurashtra in Gujarat, Bundelkhand in Uttar Pradesh, etc. And majorly it is on account of economic backwardness. Then when we look at northeastern region, it is geographically isolated. Then it is economically backward as well. And when it comes to northeastern states, they have a distinct ethnic identity. Due to these reasons, we witness regionalism in northeastern states in form of demand of a separate state, Bodoland in Assam, demand of Greater Nagalim, which states that let's combine the Naga inhabited regions which are there in Nagaland, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, as well as in Myanmar, okay, to create a one administrative unit, create a different state encompassing all the regions which are inhabited by Naga. Then in 2003, we witnessed attack on Bihar laborers by United Liberation Front of Assam. Then in 2008, in Maharashtra, what we witness is Maharashtra Navnirman Sena was targeting the North Indians. Okay, this is basically pertaining to son of soil theory on account of competition again between the locals and the migrant people. And in this background, what this Maharashtra Navnirman Sena actually did it stopped the Bihari movies or films to be featured in the Maharashtra state. Then it is again witnessed in form of local first policy. In this regard, Haryana and Andhra Pradesh came up with their separate state acts which provided reservation to the locals, especially in the private sector. Okay, again it is a manifestation of son of soil theory. Because what happens is, as we have discussed, on account of poor economic development, we are not able to create enough employment opportunities. Then there is competition between the locals and the migrant population. And this is the reason that such states like Haryana and Andhra Pradesh has come up with their respective state acts in order to provide reservation to the locals. Then it is also getting manifested in form of interstate disputes. For example, Karnataka and Maharashtra are fighting over this Belgaum region. We witness interstate river water disputes as well. For example, Kaveri dispute, which is between Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. The next thing that we need to make note of is what all measures are there in order to address this issue of regionalism. So we have constitutional measures, we have federalism in India, which is there to accommodate the regional aspirations that are there. Then we have 5th schedule for the scheduled areas and 6th schedule for the tribal areas, which provide the tribal people basically in these areas to have a requisite autonomy. And this autonomy is quite high when it comes to the tribal areas which are characterized in the 6th schedule. Then we have special provisions for around 12 states under Article 371, which intends to address the economic backwardness when it comes to Vidarbha and Saurashtra region of Maharashtra and Gujarat. It also enables the different states to enjoy requisite autonomy when it comes to the political matters, administrative matters. Then we have interstate council, which could be created by the president under Article 263 in order to address the different interstate disputes or disputes between state and the center government. Then we have legal measures as well. We reorganize the states based on linguistic lines through State Reorganization Act 1956. And this very act also led to creation of 5 zonal councils. Later on, through Northeastern, Zonal Council Act 1971, a zonal council was also created for northeastern states. These zonal council also play a very major role in addressing the interstate disputes that are there. They provide a platform wherein the states which are there in a particular zone, they can come up with their coordinated efforts in order to address the problem which that particular zone is witnessing. Then we have different policy measures as well. We have National Integration Council 1961, which is there to address this very issue of regionalism through coordinated efforts between the center and the state. Then the Government of India came up with Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, which basically intend to realize the socialistic pattern of Indian society, wherein the government came up with 3 schedules of industry, Schedule A, B and C. When it comes to the industries which were mentioned under Schedule A, it was exclusively under the control of the state. When it comes to the industries which were mentioned in Schedule B, it was open to both public as well as private sector. And when it comes to Schedule C, the industries in the schedule were open to private sector. So it basically intend to create the PSUs, okay, and address the issue of imbalanced regional development. Then state-specific grants are given by the central government to the poorer states based on the recommendation of Finance Commission. So apart from these measures, what needs to be done? We need to promote games like cricket and hockey, which create a sense of unity among the Indian population. Then we need to organize cultural sensitization programs in the colleges so that our youth is not divided on such lines, okay, on caste basis, on region basis, on religious basis, etc. And we need to organize fair and festivals wherein we showcase the diversity which the India encompasses. For example, one of the good initiative of government is Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat. So whatever programs we are undertaking under that program, we need to give boost to those programs because it creates a sense of respect among the people belonging to different regions when it comes to the distinct culture of another region. That is all that we have to make note of from this very topic. Let's move to the next one. Now this next topic is related to drought in the Amazon rainforest. And this topic pertains to this very aspect of our GS paper 3 syllabus. What is the context? So the context being the Negro River, which is one of the major tributaries which run through the Brazilian Amazon, has reached its historic lows. And on account of this, what has happened is we have been able to come across millennia old carvings which were previously hidden underwater, and these carvings are basically 1000 to 2000 year old. Now in this regard, the first thing that we need to make note of is certain locational aspects and certain details with regard to Amazon rainforest. Now when it comes to Amazon rainforest, it is a moist broadleaf tropical rainforest in the Amazon biome, and it covers most of the Amazon basin of South America. The basin encompasses around 70 lakh square kilometer, of which 55 lakh square kilometer are covered by rainforest. This region includes territory which belong to these 9 countries, as you can see in the image. And more than 3,300 formally acknowledged indigenous territories are there. When it comes to this Amazon rainforest, it encompasses around 10% of the wildlife species that are there. The majority of the forest, 60%, is in Brazil, followed by Peru, which is having 13% of the rainforest, and Colombia, which is having 10% of this rainforest. Amazon are also called the planet's lungs. Why? Because they store more than 150 billion metric tons of carbon. That is one of the prominent reasons why we need to protect the Amazon rainforest, because if they get degraded, then this carbon would be released in the atmosphere, which would further be giving boost to the global warming. Then when it comes to Amazon river, it originates from here and it flows through Brazil and it ultimately drains into Atlantic Ocean. It is the largest river by volume in the world. Now, we need to understand what are the causes of drought in Amazon rainforest. First being El Nino. Now, El Nino basically implies high sea surface temperature near the Peruvian coast. Now, on account of this, what is happening is drier conditions are being created here near the Amazon rainforest, because here low pressure is there. So, here drier conditions would be created because all the oceans are interconnected. And on account of El Nino, extreme heat wave conditions are also being witnessed. That is another reason of drought in Amazon rainforest. Another reason being high water temperature in North Atlantic Ocean. So this region is becoming warmer. So air above this is getting warmer, and this warm air is going to rise up, and this warmer air is reaching to the Amazon rainforest. And as this air is not becoming cooler, okay, which is required for creation of clouds, that is the reason that cloud formation is getting impacted here. And this is another major cause of droughts in Amazon rainforest. So droughts in Amazon rainforest is a result of these two complex phenomena which we are witnessing on account of climate change. Now, what are the impacts of droughts that we are witnessing in Amazon rainforest? It is severely impacting the wildlife. So a lot of dolphins are getting killed. They are being drawn towards the shore, and the experts have pointed out that the dolphins are likely to be getting impacted. They might die in the Teffe Lake. And one dolphin which is severely getting impacted is Boto. And since these carcasses of the dead bodies of fish and dolphin are being drawn to the shores, now as they are getting rotten, so these rotten bodies of dead fish and dolphins are basically deteriorating the water quality. This in turn is impacting the health of humans who are living around these areas. Then it is impacting the capacity of hydropower dams, and the Brazilian authorities have pointed out that around this much of people would be getting impacted on account of drought in Amazon rainforest by October itself. Now, on account of drought situation, what is happening is this region is becoming vulnerable, more vulnerable to wildfires. And according to National Institute for Space Research, in October, this region has witnessed around this many blazes, okay, which is the highest which has been recorded in the past 25 years. And on account of wildfires, what is happening is deterioration in air quality, especially in the Manaus city, wherein the children and the older people are witnessing respiratory issues, and they are ending up in the hospitals on account of deteriorated air quality. Now, in this regard, there are two studies which outline the grim future with regard to the drought conditions that we are witnessing in Amazon rainforest. One study that was published in Proceedings of National Academy of Science in 2022, it pointed out that if we continue to burn the fossil fuels at the same rate that we are doing right now, then this Amazon rainforest would be witnessing drought condition in 9 out of 10 years. Okay? Till 2060. And another study which was published in the journal Nature in 2022 only, it pointed out that on account of climate change, what we are witnessing is the capacity of the Amazon rainforest to recover from the severe drought conditions that it is witnessing is going down, and it is reaching near its tipping point. And it has pointed out that once it crossed this tipping point, this rainforest would be converted into an open savanna region. And it would further lead to release of huge amounts of carbon which is stored in this Amazon rainforest, which would further give impetus to global warming and climate change ultimately. Now, what is tipping point? Tipping point is basically that critical threshold which, if one passed, okay, it would lead to irreversible changes in that particular ecosystem. It would not be possible for us to again return to the previous stage. Now, what needs to be done? So, we need to cut down on greenhouse gas emission, and we need to carry out afforestation exercises. Okay. That is all that we have to make note of from this very topic. Let's move to the next one. Now this topic is related to bail, and this topic is related to this very aspect of our prelim syllabus. What is the context? So the context is recently the Supreme Court has dismissed a plea for bail which was filed by former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia, who is currently facing money laundering and corruption charges in liquor policy case. Now this case is not very much important for us, but what is important from UPSC perspective is to understand what is bail. Now bail is basically a conditional release of an accused in a criminal case wherein the court is yet to pronounce its judgment. So in order to get a bail, the accused need to deposit a security, and the security amount is decided by the courts. And this amount of security would be determined by the court keeping in mind the nature of the offence and the criminal record of that particular accused person. These are the different kinds of bails that are there. When it comes to regular bail, this is generally sought by a person who has been arrested by the police, okay, or who is in the police custody. When it comes to anticipatory bail, this is sought by a person who has anticipated that he might be arrested by the police, okay, for a non-bailable offence. Then when it comes to interim bail, it is, as the name suggests, it is a temporary or a bail which is provided for short period. Meanwhile, the court would be looking into this aspect that whether that accused person should be provided regular bail or anticipatory bail or not. Okay, when the court is basically delving into this aspect that whether that accused person should be provided with regular bail or anticipatory bail or not, in the meanwhile the accused person gets filed for interim bail, which is a bail for a temporary or short period. Coming to default bail, so the accused person has the right to bail if the police fails to complete the investigation within the stipulated time. So when a person is arrested, the police have to carry out the investigation within 24 hours of arrest. If the police wants to keep that accused, in the police custody only, that is in the police lockups only, then it has to get the permission in this regard from the magistrate. So if the police failed to complete its investigation within 24 hours of arrest, then magistrate can allow further 15 days of police custody. After this, the accused can be kept under judicial custody only by the magistrate. So judicial custody basically implies that that person is kept in jail, okay, under the supervision of the magistrate. Now, when it comes to judicial custody, it could be maximum of 90 days within which the police has to complete its investigation. When that offence is punishable with death sentence, with life imprisonment or imprisonment up to 10 years. And in other offences, the investigation needs to be completed within 60 days. But when it comes to offences which are committed under Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act, here the police gets around 180 days to complete the investigation. But if, these days have passed and the police was not able to complete the investigation, then that accused person gets the right to bail, what we call it as default bail. And the court would be providing the bail to a particular accused based on this thing that, it might happen that the police does not have the requisite evidences, or the accused person is a woman or child, or the accused person is quite sick. And when it comes to the courts, it can cancel the bail any time and it can order the police to arrest that particular accused. That is all that we have to make note of from this very topic. Let's move to the last one. Now this last topic is related to prisoner's dilemma, and this topic is related to this very aspect of our prelim syllabus. What is the context? So recently, the Defence Minister of India, that is Rajnath Singh, has referred to a concept of prisoner's dilemma at his keynote address at Goa Maritime Conclave to underscore the need for countries to collaborate with each other instead of working at cross purposes. Now, the thing that we need to understand is, what is this prisoner's dilemma? So it is basically a concept which is related to game theory, which enables us to understand that how an individual or an entity is going to behave under different circumstances. Now, normally, every individual or any entity is going to, do such actions which are in their best interest, which is going to pay off them the best result. But the reality is quite complex. The final outcome would not only be dependent on this thing, that what actions a particular individual or a particular entity has taken, it would also be dependent on the actions which the another individual or your opponent individual or your opponent entity has taken. Let's take an example which was referred by Defense Minister of India as well, that let's assume this country A is piling up, it is collecting arms and ammunitions in order to secure its border. But would this be enough to secure its border? Because this activity of country A might initiate an arms race in the very region. So final outcome would not only be dependent on this thing, that what all actions you are taking, it would also be dependent on what actions the other individual or other entity is taking. Now let's try and understand this prisoner's dilemma with a very lucid example. Let's suppose these two individuals A and B have committed a particular crime, but the police is not having enough evidence. It is only having circumstantial evidence, based on which it can give the maximum, punishment to both the players of 1 year jail term. But if the police gets adequate evidence, okay, and that could happen when either of these two individuals give statements against each other. That means if individual B gives the statement that yes, this crime was committed by player A, or if player A states that the crime was committed by player B. Now in this regard, the police would be having adequate evidence to provide adequate jail term to both player A and B. That would be 5 years. So what the police does is, it keeps these two accused people in two different prisons, so they cannot communicate with each other. And what the trick police is playing here is, it tells player A that if you give us the statement that B was indulged in that particular crime, then we would set you free. Okay? And in this regard, if A gives the statement against B, that is defect, then A would not be having any sort of punishment, but in this background, the player B would be given 10 years of jail imprisonment. Vice versa, if player B gives a statement against player A, then he would be set free and player A would be getting 10-year jail term. Another situation is, if both of them cooperate with each other, that is, they do not give statements against each other, then in that scenario, the police would be able to keep them behind the bars for a maximum period of 1 year. But if both of them give statements against each other, then both would be given a punishment of 5 years. Now, what is this prisoner's dilemma all about? Now, given this matrix, individual A and individual B, they are witnessing the scenario that if individual A gives the statement against individual B, then he will be set free and it would be the B individual who will be getting the punishment. Vice versa is the scenario with individual B as well. And they do not know that if they do not give the statement against the other person, what is the chance that the other person would also not be giving the statement. So since they are faced with this prisoner's dilemma, what they ultimately end up with, they both give statement against each other and ultimately end up serving 5-year jail term. However, the best scenario was they both should cooperate with each other so that they could be given a minimum punishment of 1 year. This is what is known as prisoner's dilemma. And that is the reason that our Honorable Defense Minister has pointed out that the countries should cooperate with each other in order to arrive at the best outcome. Okay? Instead of taking actions which are against the interest of another country. That is all that we have to make note of from today's analyst. Thank you for listening to this very discussion and all the very best for you.